think the big question here is, how do we create a new normal? So I got the answer in the back here. I'm looking at the answer. We'll get to the answer as we go. And this is not normal for anybody on the planet right now. We're all in unfamiliar territory. And looks like this is still preparing to go live. So if somebody can type in the chat, if somebody's also looking at the Facebook School Counselor Squad, just let me know if that pops up live in the School Counselor Squad group. So I'm just gonna, all right, looks like we got somebody putting something in here. We have a hi. So, all right, and I'm not gonna be paying tons of attention to the chat right now. That's just kind of maybe one of the first lessons for Zoom and getting going on these kind of broadcasts, is that it's really hard to get distracted in tons of different directions. So this new normal is something that we'll all hopefully get more and more used to with familiarity. So our familiar things are just gone. They're going out the window, and we're in this uncharted territory, and we've got to figure out how to create this new normal. And we're the role models for this too. And let me see, is the lighting? That was coming a little bit closer. So, you know, this is like, it's intense because we want to role model the way of just being at ease. You know, just kind of that throwback, keep calm and counsel on is kind of the order of the day. We've got to demonstrate and role model the type of person that we want to just kind of give off that nice feeling of being at ease and being comforting. And you know, we'll come to that answer of how we create this new normal as we go. So the big items that we were looking at is alleviating anxiety, reducing stress, and how do we role model for kids in the future that when we get past coronavirus, the thing is, these things have been around for a long time, like Zoom and webinar services and, you know, all these different apps and platforms that we can get on with social media and everything else. Our kids are going to be in this like future of ours that they're going to embrace and adopt these things and be able to work from home if they want to. So that can be an option. It's part of what I do is, you know, I've always had some kind of second gig, whether it's painting houses or doing something in the summer. I've always done something in the summertime as a counselor. And then now I've been doing coaching for quite a while. And the coaching's pretty cool because I do the majority of it just from home. And so this is not super unfamiliar territory for me, and I know it is for just about everybody else. And that's what a lot of people are wondering, is how do we role model that way of work that's going to be a part of our future more and more and more, regardless. We're going to get past coronavirus, of course. And right now, with everything familiar being thrown out the window, even just the ability to give each other a hug, even just the ability to see people, it's all gone out the window. So that's so hard for all of us to deal with. And then, you know, we're in that position of being of service. And so the service goes on. It doesn't end just because we can't reach people. And we've got the ability to use tools like Zoom to reach people. And just if you type in the chat box here too, I'm not saying anything new, but is your district already giving you some direction? I'm wondering. Our district just reached out to us, and I'm an elementary school counselor at Grandview Elementary here in Windsor, Colorado. And we're going to be using the Google Hangouts instead of Zoom. We're going to be doing the work on Canvas instead of Google Classroom or one of the other platforms. So that's some of the directives we've gotten. And I think when you create that new normal, not all of it's up to us. We certainly can be pioneering and jump out there and maybe show some initiative and share some ideas with counselors or with the administrators. A lot of our direction is going to be given to us. So some people are using Schoology and Zoom, others are using Google Classroom, and we got Pear Deck. Yeah, so some of these things we've already used, like Pear Deck and some of these other tools, the teachers have used in the classroom. So the number one thing I would say for alleviating your anxiety and that of your staff is just to go with what's familiar. If the district gives a directive and you got to start using something you've never used before, that's tough. But if you get the options, go with what you already know. So there's a lot of different options to do a classroom. There's a lot of different options to do some kind of a broadcast. But if you're going with something super unfamiliar, that just adds to your own stress. So if you've used Google Classroom, then use that. If you've used Schoology or some other tool before, then go with what you're familiar. If you've used Canvas, then those familiar tools are what you should go to first, and suggest the same thing to the teachers. All right, so one of the things I'd like to do is show that we can pull up, there's a couple different things. One is you can have the chart feature, or the actually screen share feature, as one option, but it's not a bad idea to just mix it up a little bit and just go with, we've got this ability to use props. Now, so something like my SOS chart is something I could have up on a whiteboard, and I've got this set for some set standards or set patterns that I've shared before. So rely on, if you're doing Zooms, you can rely on a whiteboard like that, or like this one I shared at the beginning. This one's down here now. This one I shared at the beginning. If you have these preset and ready to go, they're pretty handy, and it mixes it up from just the standard, like sharing a PowerPoint over Zoom. So I'm gonna share a screen in a moment to show you that, but let's see what else we got. Google Classroom, Zoom, Class Dojo, misdirection from the district and my principal. Yeah, and then I think we can demonstrate understanding too. So that's one of the big jobs of school counselors, is setting the tone for the other members of the community. So the crazy thing about this one is it's not just, we're dealing with a grief situation or a loss situation, or somebody that needs to come in a crisis. It's like the whole world just entered into, probably, look at my chart here, the whole world moved up into, all the way up into the yellow zone for sure, if not the red. So we're all in a territory where we're in it. We're all immersed in it, number one, as counselors and community members. So somebody mentioned something about getting kids on it. So I'll definitely weave in the questions. So let me pull up and show on Zoom how you can share your screen. So you get options to share your whole desktop. One note about that is if you share your whole desktop, they're gonna see some things around the periphery, like your files and your desktop and so on. You can share a whiteboard, and you can share just Google Chrome. So when I share just Google Chrome, then you should just see, of course, the thing I've got to access is below the screen. It definitely kind of being on, like I am in front of fellow colleagues out there, can be a little stressful, obviously, but I don't think there's really any getting around that one. I think getting around is just by getting more familiar with things. So as we pull something up from a chart like this, now I can share my screen, and you see me off in the corner, and we can pull up something to display. Zoom gives you this cool feature of being able to annotate as well. So let's see, I can annotate. You've got the option to put on a variety of things here. So let's say like this little X. X kind of marks the spot of where we are today. That's kind of like the general whole world. Some would be above the red and some would be below the red. And let's just say, like, if this wasn't just yesterday, but further back in time, when you use this chart, you can use it today, yesterday, and the day before. That's really helpful for kids because they're very short in terms of their time frames. So the whole wide world has flown up to there, and I'm now sharing this on a non. We're viewing it. Oops, I've got annotation. Sometimes you can forget that you're stuck on annotation. Then you actually have the ability to erase. It's whatever. And so I'll erase all those. And then we can go into we can share it in the, so I've got to switch actually over to the mouse. So you can share it in the presentation view. All right, so things move around a little bit too. They go up, they go down, they either go to the bottom or the top, but still on the annotation if I want to make some marks on here and start over. One thing that'll happen as well is as you shift screens, that X, if it was over here, would stay over there. Got this little spotlight tool as well that you can use. So if I put the X over here, there'd still be an X right there on the next screen when you share screens on Zoom. So it just kind of stays wherever it is in your computer screen when you make notes. Let's go back to that stamp feature. So this is where we all are. We were in the past, you know, maybe here and here. And so the stress has gone up for our whole community. So we're in it. And when we think about role modeling as counselors and trying to bring down our own stress levels, start with thing one is to go with what you're familiar with. So if Zoom's not super familiar to you and you've got more experience maybe, you know, putting together a little screencast on something else, then use something else you're familiar with. You know, do something that's QuickTime movie or something else you've used in the past. And I think thing two is just sharing your voice. What I got feedback on is that just hearing a familiar voice was really big. And so that can then take that stress down. So maybe that brings back people into the green. So that's, and we can do little line drawings here too. Let's see, draw one. So that's what we want. If it's rising like this. Oops, that didn't connect. That's still not connected. You want it to come back down again. So being that you're just putting out your voice, it could be something you just put a little quick recording every day. It could just be audio too. If you're not comfortable with the video, this video right here can be shut off even when you're sharing. If you're more comfortable sharing without your video, you can just stop the video and have a picture up there instead. So anything that you need to do to get yourself comfortable and at a place where you've got a peace of mind or a little sense of ease is important. So use familiar tools, just share your voice. Those are a couple things that I'll repeat as we go. And then I've got kind of the big answer on the back of my board too. So we'll come back to that. All right, and I think the other big message is our service doesn't stop. So just giving that message that the district will give you some kind of instruction. I shared a little thing from ASCA on the ethics and legal considerations of sharing things online as counselors. So the district direction, the ASCA direction is something you can look for or look toward, and just go with those suggestions and get that guidance so you don't have to do it all yourself. But just sharing that message, hey, I'm available. I can be reached by phone or email, or perhaps they get you set up with Zoom or some other service that's going to be acceptable to the district for you to start reaching out. And let's talk about how. So let's get this eraser out here. You can clear everything at once too. Clear all drawings at once so you don't have to erase it bit by bit. All right, so I want to go into, let me actually share my video again. Hello again. All right, so up here, we got this little text box. We are the source of support up here. We'll go SC up there, school counselor, and we'll go family, friends here. And down here is yourself. So this chart, most of you are pretty familiar with. I'm using my solving our stress chart. And the idea here is we have an inner world that can operate a lot like a traffic light. So there's a few different things I've posted out there on Instagram, within the School Counselor Squad group, and YouTube. So feel free to check out some of the stuff I've done on this chart. But most of you have come to the School Counselor Squad group because you've seen this chart before and you've seen this system. That time frame piece is really huge. So of course, a lot of people use green, yellow, and red. But seeing this pattern over the course of time is what is significant about this. And then the left-hand side of this chart, I basically created from when our kids come back from at the high school level. I've got about 18 years, I think, at the high school level, and now 2 years at the elementary level. At the high school level, they come back and they've got to create a safety plan if they've been hospitalized for mental health. And when they do, I mean, we have a bunch of questions, maybe 9 questions that they fill in these answers, but I just applied it to the chart and just said, okay, when they come back, We find out their sources of support. We find out their sources of stress, what kind of signs they show. And really everybody can develop this system for kind of mindfulness or being aware of where you're at. So self-awareness and mindfulness, those are super, super nebulous. So when we're alleviating stress, we've got school counselors to help with that. We have family and friends that are trusted. So some of our friends are not super helpful with that at that middle level. And at the lowest level, we want kids working on their coping strategies and their techniques for just regulating their own emotions. All right, so some of those most popular things on regulating the emotions, if we get a little bit more specifics, actually let me erase self down here. So if we get a little bit more granular in this, and we think about, you guys can post in some of the chat box area, what do you think people actually do for those coping skills? One of the most popular ones for high school kids is music. So they've got access to that. And maybe like videos too. So maybe we don't want them doing that all the time and we want some structure back. But when they're feeling that stress, they've got the ability to tune into some music or to watch something fun, and then maybe a hobby. Go to a hobby. Kids also do writing. Sometimes there's some journaling happening, reading. All of these things can be done on our own. And then breathing. I guess I'm running out of space now, but you can certainly add in breathing, because I think that's number one. I'm going about 1 million miles a second myself, so I got to remember that one. All right, let's see. We've got something in the chat box here too. All right, so somebody says, this is Marcy. We are on Canvas or platform. Okay, thought somebody maybe shared something on coping strategies, but those are some of the most common ones I've heard from high school kids. Music, videos, hobbies, writing, like, or journaling, and then reading. So those are the ones at that lower level that you can focus on to alleviate that anxiety. Oh, I know what it is. Mouse. Okay, so yeah, getting kids on things, that's where somebody asked that question about what's the difference between live, sharing it live, and doing it pre-recorded. One of the things that's pre-recorded is you can do take 2 and take 3 and take 4. The problem with doing that many takes, though, is that you might just take a ton of time. It's okay to, so as I just had to take care of somebody that was like posting random, unhealthy, unnecessary things in there. That was just something that distracted us for a moment. And so it's okay if you can't just stay dialed in every second, and you got to take care of what you got to take care of. You got to do what you got to do. And if you pre-record it, the nice thing is you could do it multiple times if you want to get it to be improved. But you know what? Less is more, and don't overstress yourself. So pre-record it, get it done, call it good, and send it out. So that makes it a little bit easier on you. Plus, the community can watch it whenever they want. They don't have to be there at a certain time. And if you're in the in live, the nice thing is you've got this ability to interact. So if participants wanted to share right now, I can open up anybody's mic. They could raise their hand. You could do the Q&A and tell me they want to participate, and I can open up a mic, and it gives us the opportunity to share. I definitely feel like at the end, I want to open up all the mics for people to be able to say goodbye at the end and get nice closure. That's one of the things I'd recommend too. If you're doing something live with multiple people, give a chance for them to participate, and give them a chance to open up the mic at the end so they all get to say goodbye to each other, or maybe at the beginning to say hello. So that's an option. Getting kids on is the trouble with doing it live. And if you can't get them on, if you can't get families on at a set time, then if you don't pre-record it, you can record your live video, which I'm doing right now, and post it later. But you get this nice sense of belonging, especially if it's people in your community. The families that are used to hearing your voice, the kids that are used to hearing your voice, they're going to be able to hear you, see you, and it's fresh. So it's just like a fresh new Instagram post. A lot of people within Instagram don't go all the way down people's old posts. It's just like only the brand new post is fresh and relevant. And so freshness is the nice feature of doing it live. Plus, you've got the ability to connect with people and have a little sense of community and belonging, which is really cool. And if somebody does have something to add, because we're all in this together, and certainly, nobody's an expert at this because we've never been through this before. So at any point along here, if you're interested in talking, just go ahead and put that in the Q&A that you've got a point to share or a question to ask. And let's come out of this for a minute. I'm going to jump over to the Facebook. So, just hitting escape gets us out of the share of the, all right, so we had some questions. I want to get to some of those questions, and I'll share, at the end here, the big answer to what really is our way to make the biggest impact to alleviate that anxiety. So just to review, we've got the ability to share our voice, stick with familiarity for us and for our community. And let's see. Oh, we have the questions down here, I think. Thank you all for participating. It's fun for me to start pulling in more people into the community. It's not fun, it's more like profound. It's exciting to actually build a community that's got some energy to it. So legality of one-on-one sessions, and the related question I put in here with this virtual school counseling ethics. So you can check that out. And we talked about the live advantages and disadvantages. It's hard to get the students there. It might be hard and wonky to keep students from writing something that's not appropriate, because that all came into the Q&A box. You can shut down the ability to share video and share audio and so on. Our next question is counseling one versus many in the permissions. Again, on that one, I would say get the district direction. So some of these things you don't want to just jump into. Some things are, if you do something pre-recorded and just post it out there on Instagram or YouTube, that's one thing. That's pretty much all of us can make posts like that. But if you want to do counseling one-on-one, if you want to do counseling with many, Google Hangouts can be done, Zoom can be done, but you want to just figure out what your district okays, and if you want to check out this information from ASCA, you can do that. And then where to start. So the big picture is none of us are used to this. It's all uncharted territory. Here we go. So we're all in this uncharted territory with, where were we at? With coronavirus and dealing with it. And so in the big picture, we have to set some expectations, figure out with other counselors in your district, if you've got ideas for today on setting those expectations. There is a new normal. Some people have the level of intensity for their kids way up here. Some people have it really low down, and they really want to make sure they're not adding to the stress. So figuring out the big picture piece on how we're dealing with this big shift to online is big. And then your first steps are really, I think, number one, assess what's familiar to you and you want to use. Then figure out what your district's going to require you to use. Then I would say get training on that so that you're actually figuring out how to use whatever is new to you. And then just trust that you're going to get familiar. Those first steps are either use what you're familiar with or get familiar with new tools that they have you use from online. And communication. I think communication is huge. Connect with your district and connect with your fellow counselors. So that answers the where to start. All right, so let's say we had some other questions up here too. I think I pretty much answered the other ones with the post down here. Oh, my thought too, like the legality questions and making sure we get permissions and making sure what we do at our district does. I think that's totally normal, and I think school counselors as a general rule are rule followers. So I think that is, of course, what you need to do as a professional. But I think the underlying piece, too, that I wanted to speak to is there's just a little bit of fear, too. So I think the nervousness, the fear, been there, done that, doing it presently, it feels awkward, sometimes to take a chance and take a risk and put yourself out there. And so that's a little bit unnerving. However, just taking that initiative upon yourself, it really stretches yourself as a leader, and it allows you that chance to take some initiative, deal and confront with some of that fear that's out there for taking a risk and doing things that are new and different. I think one thing we talked about too as a district is like, don't set the bar way up here and then make other people feel like, oh, I'm not that innovative, I'm not that creative, I'm not that much of a, you know, leading edge type of person. So kind of thinking about, you know, don't try to outdo each other right now. Like I know competitiveness and people wanting to be great at what they do is pretty natural. But I think right now you want to be aware of, wow, if I actually get the guts and courage to do this, how does that make somebody else feel? And I think we can't really control how everybody else feels, but definitely if we're doing something that raises that bar of expectations super, super high, and then, you know, other people are feeling like there's no way I can meet that, then that could be pretty awkward too. So be, you know, I think use whatever the district is saying to use, follow the rules of what you got permission to do. Think about, you know, checking out the ASCA resource here to get some more details about that. And I just want to help people embrace that it's natural to feel a little bit nervous or fearful. I love Mel Robbins with this. She talks about, you know, this physiologically on our insides, the fear and the anxiety is the same physiological feeling as excitement. So it's a little bit weird. I think, you know, we don't want to be tone deaf to thinking like, hey, this is something to be excited about, or this is fun. It's not exactly that, but certainly taking that attitude of embracing it and having a sense of, hey, there's nothing I can do about these physiological feelings, but I can carry on. And if you want to reframe it to be more excited to take on a challenge, because I think we're wired for this. This is our time. This is a time for school counselors to be one of those essential services. I had a friend that made a post that was pretty cool that just said, hey, you know, forward this, cut and paste and forward it. I'll actually add that. I'll go find that post that just says I'm a mental health provider. And if you want to reach out to me, repost this. So I'll share that in the school counselor group. I wasn't sure if I wanted to open up myself to the whole wide world, knowing that I'm going to have a school community that's dealing with maybe unemployment in addition to the coronavirus. They might have somebody sick. You know, people already could have passed away that are related to the people in your communities. So let's be sensitive to like our own colleagues so we don't set that bar super high. Let's be sensitive to our own self-care and not say yes to too much. I will share that post, but I don't want you to just feel like you've got to do it all. I think confronting the fear is what we're wired to do, you know, confronting and helping and being the helpers that I think I saw it in the Mr. Rogers movie that he talked about whenever there's some kind of crisis, what do you do? And so what other prop do I have here? Oh, one thing too, I think we all kind of have these one-room schoolhouses. And so I've incorporated my daughter's artwork. So when you've got somebody to help you out in the family, maybe with art, because my art, you'll see with my answer page here is not that great. So my little paid people here were made by my daughter. So here's the therapist one. I thought this one was cute. The therapist and the other person are talking at the same time. So I've been guilty of that. But that's going to relate to our big answer here. So the big reveal is ears. You know, for your community members, for your family members, for your the students, the staff, everybody, it's your ears, these things here that you also were, you know, I think if you weren't born to do this work of school counseling, you certainly have worked that craft, studied it, and it's the listening that matters so much. So that's the biggest answer of all. If you want to alleviate that stress and bring down that anxiety and even turn it around, then it's just reminding people that they can be the listening ear for others, and you yourself can provide that. So it doesn't need to be super overcomplicated. We can just be the listening ears for others. So that's kind of the number one thing, is don't forget how valuable that is. Simple things like taking a deep breath. Let me take a little better one. Everybody could take one with me. So get a little bit more comfortable. Take a nice big belly breath here. All right, so breathing, that's a big one. That can really be one of the best self-care items for down in that green section, and then being those listening ears. So I think we come back to the chart and pull that up here. This is a little bit bigger example for the left-hand side of the chart. So I could write a little bit more in it. So let me go to annotate again. And this is where whiteboards can be a lot easier too. So just drawing on your own board or having a whiteboard, a blank one handy too. So you can have a blank one handy. You can have pre-printed whiteboards. And that can be something that mixes it up too. If you've got other things that are good for props, it adds a little bit of dimension to your presentations. And sharing your environment, moving around or standing up, taking a break. I didn't build in any movement breaks with this webinar, but certainly that's a good thing to do. So when we look at the sources of support again, this breathing down is one of the biggest ones. Breathing. If you only get one for each of these sections, it'll be breathing. I'd go ears and ears. So the people that we had as sources of support is what I had there in before. And the one to-do item for your do-it-yourself self-care is breathing. Your number one item, if you're just kind of the everyday supporter of that person, like a family member or a friend, then it's your listening ears. And then your number one source of support as a professional, as a school counselor, is again, just your listening ears. The source of support or the source of stress right now is a lot of this is just it's all the same. Okay. Coronavirus. And coronavirus is making this all tougher on all levels. And the signs of stress, these are individual. So showing somebody or using this chart for all of your family members, all of your students, just helping them learn what they show. So parents know, I don't need a helicopter because they're in the green. I don't need a referee because it's a yellow level problem. And then, oh, this is a danger sign. I'm seeing the red flags. So when we see red flag signs of stress, that's when we know it's a professional that we need. And that could be a mental health resource as well. As school counselors, we can't serve everybody's mental health needs. We've got to be able to refer them out. So that's what you're listening for, is what type of help do they need? And if it's professional level, it might be you, but it might be outsourcing it to someone else within the community. I'm sure most of the community services are pretty tapped out right now though too. So that's definitely a reality. All right, so let me see what other questions might be popping up here in the group. I think we've answered all the Facebook questions. I see a couple comments in the chat, hopefully. Let's see. All right, so one of the thoughts I had was to ask my district if it is possible to have my office phone at school forward to my home phone. I prefer not to give out my personal phone numbers. Any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, just getting the district answer on that would be one. If they can do that, that's awesome. And then you also can do *67 to block a number. And also you can create a Google Voice number. So I've created that myself. So I've got my own cell phone number, but I've also got a Google Voice that I put out there for my coaching phone number, and you can set up that Google Voice. So I think that's what somebody answered here. You can set up a Google Voice account, which uses a separate number. It's a free service, cell number to make and receive calls. After this is over, you can deactivate the phone number from your account, and something to look into. Yeah, so if you go on your phone, there's a couple things that are pretty cool with it. All right, so on voice, you've got the ability to call people. You've got the ability to, let's see, text as well. So there's the texting feature, the call feature, and you can even create a voicemail. So that's pretty cool because it is just used right from that app on the phone, the Google Voice app, and you make your calls from there, and then it allows you to have that anonymity and not give out your cell phone number. All right, so somebody else says the cool thing about Google Voice is that students' parents can also text. Exactly. All right. For district costs $20 to $30 a month per person. Yeah, you can just activate it, create a phone number, and then you can just cancel it out, and then it's gone for good after that. So, and then, you know, if you want the number and you want to keep the number because somebody starts to get familiar with it and you want that familiarity, then you can just keep it and you have another resource to utilize for that communication. All right, so let's see. Anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead, fire away in the chat. I'll keep that available to you. And I will get rid of all the drawings. I think this is also a great time for planning. So let me stop screen share for a moment. Oh, going back and forth between the screen share is pretty helpful too. So that allows you to, you know, mix it up a little bit. And it also allows you, when you stop sharing, then you're not showing your screen anymore. So if you want to open up something, if I go back into my folders, I could sharing my phone with those phone numbers. I guess I don't really have any full phone numbers on there, so that was no big deal. But yeah, watch out, like if you're sharing a phone or you're sharing your whole desktop, watch out for what you're sharing. So just be aware of what you're sharing and what's going out there. I think the fear of getting into trouble when we're breaking some policies, rules, regulations, ethics, all that stuff kind of freaks us all out on the one hand. On the other hand, it's like we make mistakes and we can be as careful as we want to be, but let's not let fear override everything. So I wanted to talk about, all right, so on the chart, this wavy part at the bottom, the wavy part with the green and yellow wave, to me is like the ideal. That's being in the zone in life. So that particular pattern, I'll explain. So if we really want to utilize this time as wisely as possible and make the best use of this time as students, then, oops, I gotta share my screen. Hang on a second. Or anyways, if we want our students to make the best use of this time and to alleviate the stress in the most proactive way, what I believe is that figuring out our passion and purpose is huge. So a lot of times in life, we don't give enough attention to planning for the future because we just don't have time a lot of times. And right now, kids do have the time to put a little bit of extra energy into this. So one of the pieces that goes together with my SOS chart is my simple personality assessment. And so when we're thinking about how we get that perfect wavy line of being in the zone in life, it's, for me, serving people. So I'm dialed in and most energized and feeling the most purposeful when I'm doing my purpose, when I'm doing what I'm passionate about, when I'm doing what I love and what I was born to do. So this is a great time for kids to be having those conversations, or for you to maybe start from some future planning conversations, because an eye on the future and being proactive about that planning right now, I think a lot of people are so just like wrapped up in this present moment that it's even hard to imagine anything else. But really helping them move into the future, I think, is super powerful. And I think I'll hold off and save that for another time. But the idea is, if we're proactively thinking about our passion and purpose and where we want to go in life and creating those visions, that can pull us out of like this emergency state of mind, this really heightened state of mind where there's just more of a crisis feeling to it. I think we'll save that for another time, because I think I need to not dive into a totally separate topic. I think the big key is to just remember your ears and remember your counselors out there, your people supporting others, and just helping them remember to take a breath is big, and use those listening ears. That's never going to grow old. We can do that on a phone. We can do that through Google Voice on a phone. We can do that through a service like Zoom and be able to see the people at the same time. So the service does not even need to slow down or stop, because we've got that ability to reach people. Zoom's cool because you can do, like right now, we have a group of like 20 or 16, and you can have one-on-one within this as well. So if you want that visual piece, you can have one-on-one. And let's take a look at that last. We shared in chat. So let me just read that last piece in chat. So I hope that helps. You know, for me, this is comfortable because I've done like over 100 webinars in the past. I did, one of my summer gigs was hosting webinars once per Saturday. So I got super familiar with the webinar platforms and just realized like sharing, not sharing, stopping the share, going back and forth, mixing it up. You know, even the standing up, we haven't taken a little exercise break or stand up break, but just getting up to stretch is important. So just doing normal things actually makes it feel less funky and awkward. So just remembering to do some of those normal things in the midst of your presentations is big. And let's take a look at that chat again. All right, so that last comment was, I've been emailing students and parents and using the platform Parent Square that our district uses to communicate with families to let them know how to get a hold of me, but I'm not hearing back from many. I've also created a Google Voice account and left some families messages, but once again, I'm not hearing back from too many students or parents. I assume they're already so busy and they'll contact me if needed, but I can't help but feel like I should be doing more. Any suggestions? All right, so I'd say one of the things that my district pointed out, or my principal pointed out, is that if we really raise this bar here, or bar way up high here, and then we're not able to keep up that pace, or you know, if God forbid somebody did get ill, well, who's going to come in and fill the void if there's a lot of just like over delivery of services? But if you're really feeling like you are under delivering services too, you also don't want to do that and make it feel like you have no outreach. So, you know, creating a simple Facebook Live that you share out, creating something on any platform that you can put into your Google Drive, because you don't even need to post it out there on YouTube or Instagram or anywhere else for that matter. You could just put it in your own drive and share a simple video. So I would say just maybe having that outreach if you want to create something simple. I've actually created 4 different presentations. So I think I've posted all those into the group. So sharing great resources is good. I think part of this is like everybody's at home on their phones and they've got like Saturday and Sunday is every day of the week for a lot of people. So if they don't have to be there for school, the last thing they're going to do is tune into some school person's broadcast because you know, they've got 80 bazillion other choices. So if you want a suggestion, I think the freshness matters and your voice matters. So hearing that familiar voice and getting something fresh, it doesn't have to be the best thing in the world. It could just simply be like a 5-minute post or a 2-minute post that allows them to hear your voice. So that's one of the suggestions, is just to share something that's not necessarily loaded with amazing content and a brand new character ed or SEL type of lesson, but just sharing something that allows you to connect and it gives them a fresh chance. So maybe doing something 1 or 2 minutes a day or every other day. I committed to Tuesday and Thursday at 8:30. And again, like not that many people show up. Out of 600 people, you're looking at 1% or something like that. So if they're not forced to do it, they might not do it, but I would definitely say reach out to your principal and say, hey, are there families that maybe the teachers are calling and they're finding out somebody's gotten laid off from their job, or there's a family member or a grandparent that died due to coronavirus, or you know, somebody else is sick and they're worried about it. So there's definitely a lot of worries out there, and you know, you might find that the direct outreach to somebody that is currently going through something, I would say get that communication going with your leadership team and figure out who really needs that call and that outreach, and make a list of those kind of tip of the triangle type of people and reach on out to them. So that's what I'd say to that one. And you know, that's pretty much all I've got for today. I hope that helps you guys realize that, you know, there's a lot of different ways to just dive in, and you don't need to, nobody's a professional or perfect at dealing with a pandemic. We're all in uncharted territory right now, and anything that you do that I think lends a listening ear, helps people take a good deep breath, reminds them of those simple self-care items, and looking out for your community members in your school community and the community around you is big. And familiarity and freshness. Just some kind of fresh, hey, this is a quick little thing I wanted to share with you. And it's not like they're soaking in that content necessarily. It's just something that allows them to hear your voice. All right, somebody says, I think teachers are in their highest level of stress right now. This is a time to serve them while parents and students are not responding. Perhaps partner with a teacher and create an SE lesson. Yeah, I mean, if we had, remember, like if we have 80 teachers at a school, and let's say you got multiple counselors, you don't actually need to think about trying to reach every individual class like you would normally, like going classroom to classroom to classroom. A lot of parents right now have kind of like this one room schoolhouse, or like this, our house is the schoolhouse. So we're all dealing with that too if you've got kids. So if you got kids, you know, getting their artwork in the mix is good if you got a presentation to do. So that makes it feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy. And then the teachers, you could team up. We can team up as a whole district. You know, the same message can go out to everybody in the district, or you could have 6 counselors on at once as panelists. And then you just kind of rotate who's in charge. And then every school could be hearing the voice. And maybe as a team, you do a 10 or 15-minute session, and everybody's voice gets into it. So all the kids at their own schools hear it. And maybe it's like 15 kids at this school and 22 kids at that school, and maybe it's parents mostly. And that way you can really, you know, connect with your entire community much, much easier. If you record that, then people can watch it at their convenience. So don't feel like you have to do it all on your own. These kind of videos, these kind of presentations can be done with a team. So remember that too. All right, so somebody says, thank you. This definitely helped me think about starting point. Thanks for giving a sense of direction. Thanks for coordinating this. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. And just realize we're all starting kind of in kindergarten with this. You don't have to feel like you're a pro at some of these new tools, because you know, some of you maybe have tons of experience, but maybe go with those things you're more familiar with. And for everything else, give yourself a little bit of love too, and be nice to yourself as you start to learn how to use these new tools in new ways and how to keep that connection going. My biggest takeaway is create that sense of safety and belonging. Just be that listening ear, be that nice resource out there that is still there and can be reached in a new way. They can't walk into your office. They certainly can be on the phone with you and connect with you in some way. So build those connections, build that sense of belonging. We can do this. All right, everybody, that's it for now. I hope you all got some good value out of this, and let me know what else you want to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about that wavy line of proactively handling stress so that we can be focused in on something productive and constructive and with a vision to the future on another call. But if you have any other ideas, let me know. All right, guys, you take care. It's been a pleasure to serve you here today, and thank you all for attending. I really appreciate the sense of community that we're starting to build here. It's awesome. All right, take care, everyone.